How's it going, my peeps? It is now time for the Raw results / highlights and review video. I'll go over the results, some of the highlights in my opinion, and give you guys my thoughts, my review on the show. So it kicks off with Dean Ambrose coming out, and he announces that, hey, he's not dead, he's still here. And then he takes a look back at what took him out, or who took him out, and they show the footage of Seth Rollins and Kane, attacking Dean Ambrose, and then Seth Rollins hitting the curb stop on the cinder blocks. And then Dean Ambrose says that he's going to be the authority tonight, and that he's not leaving this ring until Seth Rollins shows up because he wants to punch Seth Rollins some more in the face. And so he grabs a steel chair, he puts it in the ring, and then he sits down, and then he waits for a while, he gets off the chair, he sits back down, and then John Cena comes out. And once John Cena gets in the ring, Dean Ambrose tells him, he's not liking the fact that John Cena's here in the ring right now, next to him. And then John Cena says that they've got the same agenda, and that Seth Rollins, cost him the championship match, and that tonight John Cena wants to cash in his ass-kicking on Seth Rollins. And then Dean Ambrose tells John Cena, I warned you, I'm not going to say it again. And so John Cena takes off his shirt, ready to fight Ambrose, and then Ambrose takes off his jacket, and then Triple H's music hits, and Triple H, Stephanie, Kane, Randy, and Seth Rollins, they all come out on the stage, and then Triple H says, I know both of you want to fight Seth Rollins, but Seth Rollins won't be fighting tonight, but you guys will. And then he's about to, make an announcement for a match or something like that, but John Cena says, well, it's okay, I'm just gonna go after him. And so he gets out of the ring and he runs towards the stage, towards Seth Rollins and the Authority, and so does Dean Ambrose. And in the beginning, they go after Kane and Randy first, and then they run after Rollins. Kane and Randy tried to stop them, but they were too late, and Dean Ambrose was catching up to Seth Rollins quicker than Cena. Seth Rollins got in the crowd and was running through the crowd, and Dean Ambrose was right after him, and so was Cena. And then they run after Seth Rollins backstage. Seth Rollins goes to the parking lot, and there's somebody putting some, I'm forgetting the word here, briefcases or whatever, in the back of his car, or the back of his SUV, I mean. And Seth Rollins just pushes him, gets in his SUV. Then Ambrose gets in the trunk of the SUV because the trunk was still open because the guy, was trying to put stuff in his trunk. But Seth Rollins speeds off, so Ambrose slides off and falls off the SUV, or the back of the SUV. And then Ambrose gets up, and him and Cena look at each other, and that was it for the segments. And then following that, backstage, we see Randy and Kane and Stephanie and Triple H announces that tonight, Randy will go one-on-one with John Cena, and Kane will go one-on-one with Ambrose. And then Kane isn't looking too happy about that. He says, why do we have to fight them? And Randy tells Stephanie to tell Rollins to stop pretty much starting fights that Randy and Kane have to fight for him. And then it was time for the Intercontinental Championship rematch between Dolph Ziggler and The Miz. And this time around, Damon Mizdow brought out a IC Championship replica. It was like a toy replica. It was a small title, like the toy ones. And he was holding it the same way The Miz was holding it, and doing the same things, once again, as The Miz is doing. Even when The Miz is in the ring and, selling and stuff like that, Damon Mizdow would copy him while he's at ringside. Anyways, The Miz hit the skull-crushing finale on Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler kicked out. The ending of the match was kind of like the same ending as SummerSlam, but in Dolph's favor. At SummerSlam, Damon Mizdow tried interfering at the end, and he did so here too by getting on the apron, but Dolph once again super kicked him, and then The Miz rolled him up and he grabbed the trunks, but Dolph countered it into a roll-up of his own, and he grabbed the trunks as well. Referee counted 1, 2, 3, and Dolph won back the Intercontinental Championship. So, as I predicted last night in my results video, review video, I said that it wouldn't surprise me if they went with the whole, thing where Miz wins it, then Dolph wins it, and then Miz wins it back, and then Dolph wins it back. So now I'm wondering if they're going to have one final match, or if that was it. Who knows? Yeah, so it's cool. Dolph is champion once again. Then after that, it was Bo Dallas versus Jack Swagger. They brought up the fact that both of these guys now have a victory over each other, so it's 1-1. This would be the tiebreaker, and Jack Swagger ended up winning the match with the Patriot Lock. So Bo tapped out. After the match, Zeb Coulter grabs the microphone and says, "I believe," and he said believe with like a high-pitched voice to make fun of Bo Dallas. He says, "I believe Jack Swagger just made you tap out." And then Swagger's music hits, and that's it. Afterwards, it's Summer Rae versus Natalya, and they show footage of Total Divas, where Natalya, like, takes out Summer out of the car. And at ringside is Layla in the corner of Summer, and Rosa Mendes in the corner of Natalya. And before the match, Summer Rae cut a promo, basically turning heel once again. She says that Summer is over for everyone, but Summer's never over for her and her girl, Layla. And towards the end of the match, Natalya hits the discus clothesline on Summer, and then she gets Summer in the corner, but then Layla gets on the apron and tries to cause a distraction, and Natalya tries to take her off the apron, but then Summer Rae rolls her up, but then Natalya counters it and then starts locking in the sharpshooter, and then Rosa Mendes grabs Layla and takes her off the apron, and then Natalya fully locks in the sharpshooter, and Summer Rae taps out. And then it was time for Kane versus Dean Ambrose. And Dean Ambrose was about to win this match, and he did win the match, but by DQ. What happened is Kane was about to go for the chokeslam, but Dean Ambrose countered it, and then he hit the Dirty Deeds on Kane, goes for the cover, but then Seth Rollins comes back and attacks Dean Ambrose. And then Seth Rollins goes ahead and grabs the chair from the outside. He tries to use it on Ambrose, but it backfires. And then Ambrose takes Rollins out of the ring. And then Kane and Rollins are both on the outside of the ring. They get up, and then Dean Ambrose goes for a suicide dive on both of them. But Kane hits his uppercut on Dean Ambrose, stopping him. And then he gets back in the ring and hits a chokeslam on Dean Ambrose. The chokeslam, though, Ambrose didn't get much air on the chokeslam, so it wasn't really a high chokeslam. But anyways, so he hits the chokeslam on Ambrose, and then Kane and Rollins were about to leave, but then Rollins looks back at the ring and he sees Ambrose, and he decides to go back and, I guess, hit the curb stomp, or trying to attack Ambrose some more. He gets on the apron, but then he sees Ambrose. Ambrose gets up, and now he's got the chair, in his hands. So Rollins decides to back off and leave. And then backstage, we see Kane, Rollins, and Triple H. Triple H tells Rollins, to stop starting all these flames he can't put out, because people are starting, to get pissed off. And then Triple H all of a sudden says, "Oh, watch out!" And then it's Ambrose, and he goes right after Rollins and right after Kane. But then they get separated. And once again, Jamie Noble and security guards and all that, they grab Ambrose, and then Triple H was about to tell them to escort him out of the arena, but then Stephanie McMahon comes in and she says, no, put him in that room over there. It's like a room or a closet. And she tells him to lock him in there, and then Triple H says, "Why?" And then Stephanie says, when have we ever, escorted somebody out of the arena and, they haven't come back. They always come back. So she says it's better to lock him in here so that way they know where he is. And so they do just that, and then security guards all stand in front of the room to keep guard. And after that, we get a 6-man tag team match. It's Sheamus and the Usos versus Cesaro and Gold and Stardust. So at the end of the match, Jimmy Uso was going for the splash on Goldust, but Goldust got his knees up, and then he hit the final cut on Jimmy Uso. He went for the cover, but then Sheamus stopped it and stopped the cover. And then after that, I believe Stardust tried to get involved. He got on the apron, but then Sheamus hit him with the bro kick. And then Cesaro took Sheamus out of the ring with a clothesline, but they both got taken out of the ring. And then Jimmy Uso tagged in, or actually before tagging him in, Jimmy Uso hit a super kick on Goldust, and then he tagged in Jey Uso, who hit the splash on Goldust successfully this time, went for the cover of course, and won the match for his team. Following that, we see Randy backstage, and Seth Rollins approaches him, and he says he knows Randy's probably not in the best of moods to talk to him right now, but he just wants to tell him that he appreciates that that Randy is facing John Cena tonight. And that he'll be at ringside along with Kane in Randy's match against Cena. And he's got a surprise too for Randy in that match. So then Randy all of a sudden looks happy and he's like, oh, okay, so you're telling me you and Kane are going to be at ringside and you're going to have a surprise? And he says, you know, he likes surprises. So then they like nod in approval, and then Seth Rollins leaves. And after that, they show the trailer for 2K15. And then after that, we get Mark Henry in the ring, and he talks about how disappointed he is. Or actually, he apologizes for disappointing the fans at Night of Champions in his match against Rusev. And then Rusev and Lana interrupt, and then they say they want to have a rematch, or the fans want to see a rematch. And then Henry, accepts, and they have a rematch, Rusev versus Henry. And Rusev ends up winning the rematch, and throughout the match, the commentators were bringing up the fact that Henry's not 100% since the match last night with Rusev. And towards the end of this match, it looked like Rusev was going to go for the super kick in the end. He was waiting for Henry to get up for a very, very long time, but Henry just wasn't getting up. So then at some point, just Rusev gave up and went for the accolade. So it looked like maybe Rusev was planning for the super kick, but Henry was waiting for the accolade. But anyways, Rusev locks in the accolade, and Mark Henry does not tap out, but he passes out. So Rusev wins the match. Following that, it was a tag team match, Adam Rose and the Bunny versus Heath Slater and Titus O'Neil. Adam Rose and the Bunny won the match when the Bunny hit a spinning heel kick on, I think it was Heath Slater. Yeah, pretty sure it was. He hits it on Heath Slater, and then Adam Rose follows it up with the party foul for the 3 count, and they win the match. And then we get Nikki Bella talking about how everybody's making excuses on why they lost their match at Night of Champions. And then she says, but the only one with a valid excuse is her, and that's because she listened to Brie Bella's interview at Night of Champions before her match, and all those words that Brie said got into Nikki's head, and that caused her the match. So then she calls out Brie, and she says some of the stuff she's been saying the past couple of weeks, where she says it's always been about Brie, and then Brie says, what, you're the one calling me out? And then after that, Nikki Bella says she wants the Bella name. She wants to be known as the Nikki Bella, and she wants pretty much Brie Bella to take that Bella name off her name. She says, you know, didn't you get married recently? Why don't you take his last name? And then she says, or are you, experiencing buyer's remorse? Are you regretting, getting married to an ugly troll? And then Brie Bella slaps Nikki, and then she tries to lock in the yes lock, but Nikki Bella rolls out the ring, and then AJ's music hits, and she comes out, she skips around the ring, and she's up in a match against Nikki Bella. So at some point in the match, Nikki Bella throws AJ onto Paige, who was sitting next to the announcer's table doing commentary. And surprisingly, Paige did not attack back. She didn't attack AJ afterwards or Nikki Bella. And instead, AJ ended up winning with the Black Widow. And after the match, Paige and AJ had a stare down. And then came time for the main event, John Cena versus Randy. But before either of them came out, they showed that next to the announcer's table, there was something covered up, just like the cinder blocks were covered up a couple weeks back or a month back. And that looks to be the surprise that Seth Rollins was talking about to Randy. So then Seth Rollins and Kane come out first, and then Randy comes out, followed by Cena, and Cena has a new shirt. It's like a blue shirt. It's one of those keep calm shirts, except it says keep calm and never give up. Now, as far as how the match ended, Randy was going for the RKO on Cena. Cena blocks it, he pushes Randy off, locks in the STF, Rollins and Kane interfere, attack Cena, DQ, and then Seth Rollins hits an enziguri on Cena, Kane follows it up with a chokeslam, and then they take Cena out of the ring where Seth Rollins wants to unveil the surprise, and there's a box there, so they take the box off, just like they did with the cinder blocks. They take the box off, but to their surprise, Ambrose is under the box, and he attacks them all, Kane, Randy, and Seth Rollins. He gets on the announcer's table and jumps on top of all of them. Ambrose then grabs Seth Rollins, puts him back in the ring. Rollins hits him, but Ambrose bounces back off the ropes with a clothesline, and then Kane gets back in the ring, and he's about to hit a chokeslam on Ambrose, but then Cena comes in for the save, and then Ambrose fights it out with Randy while Cena fights it out with Kane, and Dean Ambrose hits the Dirty Deeds on Randy, And Kane was about to hit the chokeslam on Cena, but Cena counters it into the AA, so he hits Kane with an attitude adjustment, and Rollins, he just got out of the ring into the crowd really far away, and he looks on from the top of the crowd area, while Ambrose and Cena are in the ring looking at Rollins, and that's it for the show. So with that, I think about Raw tonight's highlights. Well, for me, the highlights, I think, two highlights. First off, Dean Ambrose going after Rollins and all of that. And Dolph Ziggler winning back the Intercontinental Championship. Also, Damon Mizdow. Damon Mizdow has been a highlight whatever he's been on TV. I like him in his new role, and I've said this so many times, but yeah, I'm a fan of Damon Mizdow, and you know, I'm also glad that Ziggler won the IC Championship back. And Dean Ambrose, I'm a fan of Ambrose. And I want to see what happens now in Hell in a Cell, because now both Ambrose and Cena want Rollins. And I'm not sure if Brock Lesnar will compete at Hell in a Cell or not. So I'm wondering, is it going to be Ambrose versus Rollins one-on-one? Maybe Cena versus Ambrose versus Rollins, triple threat match? But then what would that leave Randy and Kane to do? So I'm not sure there. Now, as far as what I thought about the show overall tonight, it was mostly comprised of rematches. For instance, the 6-man tag team match, Sheamus, you know, and the Usos versus Cesaro, Goldust, Stardust. We saw that last week on Raw. Also, Natalya versus Summer Rae, we've seen that before, and it was also at that time centered around Total Divas. That was the reasoning behind the matchup. And you know, Randy versus Cena, it's a match we've seen, you know, a lot of times. Same with Dean Ambrose and Kane. We saw that not too long ago too. And what else was there? I think I can name some more. Well, of course, you know, The Miz versus Dolph. But like I said, I'm glad with the outcome of that match. Bo Dallas versus Jack Swagger. That's another rematch. Also, Rusev versus Henry. We had just seen that, you know, last night at Night of Champions as well. So it was really, you know, most of the matches, I think all of the matches were matches we had seen before. The only one we hadn't seen before was Adam Rose and the Bunny. In a tag team match against Heath Slater and Titus O'Neil. But even then, you know, we've seen Adam Rose versus Heath Slater or versus Titus O'Neil, and the Bunny would get involved. So yeah, it was a lot of stuff we've seen before. Now, for rating for tonight's Raw, I'd have to give it like a 5 on 10. I did not think this was one of the better Raws. Definitely not. Really, the highlight for me was Ziggler's title win and Damon Mizdow and Dean Ambrose segments. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, you can click that like button down below. I'd really appreciate it, and I'm out. See you guys.